Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Rocket Hour. This is our second episode now. We definitely worked out a few kinks this past weekend, talked some things over, and we are ready to go. I'm here with, obviously, myself and Mr. Halterman. Mr. Halterman, what a weekend we had.
Mr. Halterman made me feel old, Ricky. Come on.
Older than me.
Yeah, well, that's true. That's true. So is like my 8-year-old niece. So that makes sense.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. I think we can kind of go in a lot of different directions, but I'm going to start on a little bit of a lighter note. We have a lot of football to discuss real quick. We're going to wrap it up real quick. We had your Cardinals and Kyler Murray. Preface that, huge Oklahoma Sooner fan, so we might touch on a few different things here.
Yeah.
We have Oklahoma to talk about, Kyler to talk about real quick, Baker to talk about real quick, and my guy Lamar real quick. I'll let you start it off because I know my weekend was a little bit better than yours, so I'll let you get your frustrations out real quick.
Oh, yeah, last weekend, total disaster for my football teams. The Cardinals, no excuse, lose to San Francisco. I mean, it's just like, how do you lose to San Francisco at home? They have nothing to play for, too. San Francisco's totally out of it. Cardinals lose, so that was awful. And I think, we were on the live stream when that happened. That was Saturday.
Right.
And then Friday night, I got a text saying, hey, the Browns don't have any wide receivers and half their offensive line is out. And I was like, oh, that's great. Well, at least we're playing the Jets. Well, it didn't matter. Browns lose 2. Baker fumbles 3 times. So, it was a really frustrating NFL weekend. The only good news, they still control their own destiny. So you think about the NFL real quick here. You've got the Cardinals going to Los Angeles to play the Rams. That, on paper, that doesn't sound good, right? But they are without Jared Goff. So, and they're playing horrible. The Rams are playing horrible right now. The Cardinals, they have really no excuse. I think they should win that game. The Browns really have no excuse. They play the Steelers, who aren't playing that well anyway. They did pick up a huge win last weekend, but they're not playing that well. They're going to rest Big Ben. He's out. They're going to rest a couple other key guys. So if the Browns can't win Sunday, they have nobody to blame but themselves.
Yeah, if you didn't get a sense of how big of an Oklahoma fan he is, he just broke it down for you in full detail. On my end, it was definitely a little bit better. We were kind of doing the live stream, and if you were watching, you saw me kept turning my neck because it was on Amazon Prime. NFL shout out, stop with Amazon Prime in the fantasy championship, but that's another conversation for another time. I was watching DeAndre Hopkins with every fiber of my being all season, so we were rooting for the Cardinals a lot all season. Yeah. But yeah, no, obviously I'm a Lamar guy there, kind of winning you're in situation also, kind of like the Browns. So we'll see there. But tonight, big for you. Yeah. Oklahoma and Florida, in my estimation, the best bowl game on paper other than the college football championship. So just give me a quick preview on what you think. Obviously a few opt-outs real quick. Kadarius Toney opting out for Florida. No surprise. Kyle Pitts opting out for Florida. So 2 massive offensive weapons for Florida, but you just kind of tell me, we've talked about Spencer Rattler probably every Saturday or whenever they're playing. Just kind of tell me how you think the game's going to go, if they're motivated. This kind of looks like a spot where both teams didn't have the seasons they were hoping for, but should be a good matchup on paper.
Yeah, I actually think as far as the intangibles of the game go, and that's huge in bowl games, who wants to be there and who doesn't is half the battle. I think OU has a huge advantage because while OU definitely did not have the season they wanted to have, their losses were early on in the year, and now they've built up momentum. Now they've been playing terrible teams, but at the same time, they're winning every week. And so OU's into it. We did have a couple of opt-outs, but they weren't anything that We did lose our starting corner, but we were pretty deep in that position anyway, and he wasn't really like a standout guy as it was. So our opt-outs really aren't a big deal. Where Florida, they lost their top 4 wide receivers. That is huge. We saw it last week with the Browns. When they lose all their receivers, it doesn't matter how good your quarterback plays if nobody's open and nobody can catch the ball. So I think the key to the game, honestly, is how much does Florida really want to be there? If they want to be there and they play really hard, I think it'll be close. If they don't, I think OU has an edge. Believe me when I say OU is not that good. They are way overrated. They have played absolutely nobody on this run that they've been on. I am a diehard OU fan. I drive 5 hours to the home games. I have, other than this year, I missed them, but hadn't missed one in years before this year. As a diehard OU fan, I'm telling you, they're not that good. So if Florida had all their weapons, I would 100% pick Florida. I do lean OU tonight, though, because I've been in these situations where OU doesn't want to be in a bowl game, and maybe they're better than the other team, and they don't show up. So I think tonight it's going to be the opposite. I think OU will win.
Well, few things. If you're new to football, you need receivers to catch the ball, and Oklahoma actually has a defense this year. So that's one of the things that we haven't always said all the time. So let's transition into why everyone's here, and that's horse racing. Before we get into kind of the stuff, preview today and some of the stuff over the weekend, let's talk about what we just saw. We did a live stream with Santa Anita. It was hosted by Curtis Magic Calloward. He does a fantastic job. If you get a chance to tune in, we were both on. He was on. So we'll just take a quick run through some of the races, especially the stakes races. And we'll start with the first one. The Mathis Brothers Mile is a grade 2 for 3-year-olds. It was unbelievable. I'll start off first. I thought Smooth Like Straight absolutely dominated. We kind of talked about it, but really kind of just had a slight bump at the beginning. But once Umberto Rispoli kind of got going, you kind of saw that he wasn't going to be denied from the winner's circle.
Yeah, this was the start of what was a trend on Saturday, which is speed on the turf at Santa Anita was great, right? You had Storm the Court at 10-1, almost wire this field. He only lost by 3/4 of a length to Smooth Like Straight. It was a situation where I don't think anybody ever thought Smooth Like Straight wasn't going to get past. He sat right off of him the whole time in second and just kind of eased by him. But to me, the big deal was for Storm the Court to hold on for second. It really kind of told you, hey, this turf course is pretty speed favoring, because Whisper Knot was sitting right there in third and couldn't get by him. Field Pass, he was sitting in a decent stocking position in fourth, and he really couldn't get by anybody. So yeah, it was just the start of a speed favoring day on the turf at Santa Anita.
Yeah, and to really quick on Storm the Court. Storm the Court was one of the best 2-year-olds on the dirt. So a big transition for him. Kind of the turfy, in my opinion, he kind of looks like a better turf runner these days. Yeah. And there's great competition on the turf, obviously, all the time. So that's good. Not really too much to take away. There are obviously other races that we're going to get to. So let's transition to the next one. We're going to go through these relatively quick here. It was a San Antonio Stakes grade 2. What did you kind of think about this one? This was the race that kind of all took us by surprise here.
Yeah, everything was going pretty well until we got to this race. And we're on the live stream, and we've all picked Mucho Gusto. We've singled him, and it's like, you can't be unhappy with what's happening right now. He looks fine. He turned for home with every chance there to win the race. He was just right there, just a head behind the leader as they turn for home, and then comes up empty. After that happened, I think it's just kind of like, well, anybody can win now. Now that he's not going to, I think I made the mistake of I put Kiss Today Goodbye in third, and boy, it's like, wow, why didn't you just put him in second? You didn't really like Extra Hope. You knew midcourt wouldn't fire, so why not take a swing there? He just was the only one running at the end, and that's why he passed everybody. Everybody else was just kind of running in place at that time when Kiss Today Goodbye zoomed past.
Yeah, as we're showing the chart, obviously, we all talked about Mucho Gusto, and one of the things we talked about, it wasn't a talent, perspective really with him, at least coming into the race. It was more about the layoff, right? So he hadn't been running since February. The KAR there is an Arabian track, Saudi Arabia. So for people that aren't really sure, you see DMR, Churchill Downs, Delmar, all that type of good stuff. So that's what KAR is. And you see that he hadn't run since February 29th. So that was kind of the biggest concern. We kind of thought 1 to 2 was a touch short, to be honest. But at the same time, you kind of looked at the rest of the field and said, I don't really know where else to go. You obviously had a big scratch with Sharp Samurai, and that's kind of where we were probably looking at the second choice. Obviously, Combatant was scratched as well, but Combatant really wasn't a serious contender. He just had some class, not as good as the top horses out in California, but all right, he kind of belonged. So we all thought Mucho Gusto was kind of the horse to take. I was a little disappointed, I'm not going to lie, by some of the other runners, Midcourt and Extra Hope. I mean, they had chances too. The fractions weren't all that fast. They finished up in 143-1. The first quarter was 23-4, and then the next one was 47-4. I mean, he really just had no excuse. And one of the things we talked about is, where do you go next? We don't know if it's the layoff. We don't know what the situation was, but this wasn't a distance that he couldn't handle. This wasn't a field that he couldn't handle. So there are a lot of questions to be asked with that group. And I don't know. We've kind of talked about it. We don't really know where to go. Baffert's got a lot of decisions to make moving forward with this horse. He's still talented. We're not sitting here saying he's not talented, but this was not the effort that we were kind of hoping for. Just from from a neutral's perspective and a racing fan's perspective. We'll talk about another long shot in the next race. I mean, they kept flying. Before I get into it, this was one of Mike Somich's top horses, one of the fillies that he really liked. He used Fair Maiden, the 9, almost 21-1, and then another horse that kind of beat some of the horses that we were kind of looking at. We were talking about Bernice for months. We loved her when she was running at Oaklawn. Never really lived up to what we thought she could have been, but still really talented. This was a pretty good field, and Fair Maiden really drove on by with ease.
Yeah, this was a really impressive performance. If a 21-1 shot is going to win a race by 2 1/4 lengths, I mean, you're going to take that every time if you're backing that horse. Fair Maiden will look like a 2-1 shot the way she ran. So all credit to her. It's set up perfectly for closers. Golden Principle, another horse. That's a horse Magic liked. Made a big move for second, off the pace. Bernice, she was actually kind of right behind the pace setters and stayed on. So, sneaky good race from her. If she could get a different setup next time out, she may be one to really come back and look for. And then, rewatching this race, preparing for the show, I thought Finite ran a lot better than I thought she did when we were on the live stream. She just was out-sprinted early. It seems like it just took her a while to get her feet under her. She's maybe a little slow out of the gate. She got pushed back, but she just didn't look comfortable. And then in the stretch, she actually, kind of picked it up and motored home a little bit. So listen, I think a lot of these horses coming out of here are going to win next out. I just think this is a really strong race, but all credit in the world to Fair Maiden. I mean, this horse just blew the doors off this field.
Yeah. And just to back, I agree with everything you just said. To back the point on Bernice, you'll see the comment, chased inside, held third. For a lot of people that don't know, when you're chasing inside, it's almost like, you're running down the football field or you're on the court. It's another defender when you have the rail. So when you're running to someone's outside, there's open space. Horses will tend to sometimes veer out because they see open space. When you're kind of boxed in like that, it can get uncomfortable. And I think, not all third place finishes are third place finishes. Some are better than others. And I think, like, to your point, she really did a nice job to hold on. It was an impressive third as opposed to a lackluster third. So just to kind of back your point, not all race results are the same just because you finish first, second, third. Some are more impressive than others, obviously. Let's move on to the American Oaks Grade 1. And this was kind of the race that I enjoyed the most for a few different reasons. One, I'm a Chad Brown fan. If you've ever listened to any live stream, Chad Brown on the turf, must play. And one of the reasons that I like Chad Brown so much is because when he ships, there's a purpose. And a lot of people kind of don't maybe take it into account, like, oh, he's got 2 horses. And this was one of the things we were talking about. Chad Brown had 2 horses in here, Duopoly, who won, as you can see, it's 6-1, and Capital Structure. And we both kind of asked on the live stream, which one would you go with? And I think Magic posed a question, or we might have gotten it in the question comments. I don't remember. But I said, you kind of have 2 horses that look pretty similar on paper. Why wouldn't you just take the one with the higher odds? What do you get? You get the one with the higher odds. Look, that's not the strategy you take all the time. But one of the things we talked about last Wednesday here on the Rocket Hour, a lot of trainers will go into a race with 2 horses. The higher odds, you have to play. And the only reason you have to is because if they thought strongly enough about one, they would have only ran one, especially when Chad Brown's here in New York. You're not going to go all the way out to Santa Anita if the horse doesn't have a chance. So that was kind of my thinking. And that's why, horse racing can be really, really tough sometimes for bettors. But this is one of the times that you're like, this horse made sense. 6-1 was a fair price, and things kind of worked out.
Well, I'll be completely honest. I had this horse on top for most of the time right before we published the guide. And the reason I took her off is I thought, well, she's probably going to be like 5-2, 3-1 by the time this thing goes off. And if she's like 5-2, 3-1, and you've got sharing, and maybe because the duopoly's taking that money, sharing is 8-5, she's the play. But then it's like duopoly is 6-1. I mean, duopoly was a better price than Red Lark and Capital Structure. Really? I mean, no, and that's no offense to those 2 horses, but to me, when you looked at this race on paper, she was the lone speed. There was no debating it. And it's like you're getting a lone speed on the turf at 6-1. It was just this is a huge regret of mine. I didn't play this horse on top. Obviously had the horse, in exactas and tries and didn't have anything around her in a pick 4. But if I did, we survive in advance. But I wish I would have had win money on this horse. Duopoly 6-1. There's really nothing to say. She got out in front, and that was it. Nobody even made up an inch on her the whole way around the track.
Yeah, and I do want to. I completely agree with everything you just said. I think, on the live stream, we all kind of looked at each other like 6-1.
Yeah.
We'll take that. I do want to touch on the favorite sharing. I don't know. I wasn't really thrilled with the performance. Again, we talked about Merneath. I think this was a third that was more of the lackluster kind. She did finish third, but again, you see no late kick save third. That's pretty accurate. She just kind of held on for third. It wasn't great.
If you see this horse entered at this distance, or even a little bit shorter, I wouldn't play her again. I really thought she would have any trouble with it. She had trouble with it. She hit a wall. Going to have to shorten her up. And you're the great point. The Merneath third, it's like, yeah, that was a pretty good race. And you watch this third, and it's like she ran like total shit, and she held off these other horses kind of because she was in second, and it was a speed favoring track, and she just kind of had a little bit more class than some of these other ones in the race, but she didn't run very well at all. This was, like I said, regrettable, but to our credit, we did point out on the live stream, hey, we didn't think this horse would be 6-1. She's definitely the play. So if you listen to the live stream, at least we helped you in that regard.
Yeah, exactly. And this is if you get a chance to look at the times, if you're not watching now or maybe later in the week, you could see this was just a merry-go-round race. 24-3, 25-1. It was really, really slow early on, and Flavien Prat really just kind of said, "All right, you guys are going to let me have this, then I'm just going to take my time, and we'll go around in circles." So that's kind of the way it went. Let's move to the feature of the day on Saturday. And I have a lot of thoughts, and the reason I do is I didn't feel this strongly about it when we were talking about it on Saturday, but I kind of took a chance to watch the replay again on Sunday, and I said, I don't know, Charlatan might have been the best 3-year-old in the country last year, and I didn't think that. When he was running it, Oaklawn obviously had a lot of time off. I was like, I don't know, this horse looks like a one-trick pony in my book. I don't know. I might have been wrong.
I still think he's a one-turn type. I really don't think you're going to see him at his best going like a 1 1/8. Just because that one race when he did go a 1 1/8 in Arkansas was not good. I mean, he did win the Arkansas Derby. He later got disqualified from it. But if you remember, there were 2 divisions of the Arkansas Derby. He drew an absolute cakewalk of an Arkansas Derby. If he was in the other field, he would have, maybe been off the board. I think he only had like a 90 buyer in the race, but those horses were so bad. He was slowing down an awful lot. But you think about, okay, forget about that race and think about his races at Santa Anita leading up to the Arkansas Derby. They were out of this world. And he basically ran back to that. And the thing that they all have in common, including the one on Saturday, was it's a one-turn race, right? So I think that's the big key. He's still very questionable around 2 turns. He might be the male version of Gamine, where, yes, Gamine can go a mile and 1/8, but she's not going to be quite at her best. But if you take her back to the one-turn races, ain't nobody going to beat her. And that looks like the same with Charlatan. This was just an ass kicking. I mean, he sat right off of Nashville. Nashville was just horrid in this race, quit before we even got to the stretch. It's like, well, he's done. And then Charlatan just blew everybody off. So I blew everybody away. So amazing performance by Charlatan. And yeah, one-turn races. I mean, I don't know who's going to beat him.
Yeah, no, Nashville, like you said, horrid. I think that's being kind, to be honest. Charlatan was 8-5. Nashville was 6-5, almost 7-5. I don't know. We were on the live stream, and Nashville's 1-2, and we were like, all right, well, we might want to look other directions. We literally went through the whole field and said, I don't know. Like you're kind of between Charlatan and Nashville. One of the points that you brought up, and I'll touch on it real quick, you kept saying this will not turn into a speed duel. This will not turn into a speed duel. And I was like, I don't know. It might. And Magic, like, it might. And you're like, no, it's not. And it didn't. It really, one kind of sat off the other. Nashville was willing to go to the lead, and I think Nashville kind of had to. And Mike Smith was a little bit more professional. Not that Ricardo isn't, but Mike Smith said, all right, you want it? Go take it. And that's kind of the way he set it up. So you called it perfectly. We were definitely all back and forth on who was going to win, but you were right that Charlatan was going to sit off. It wasn't going to be a pace duel, and the layoff certainly didn't bother him at all. Really, really professional, and I think moving forward, he's one that you got to look out for at these shorter distances. Not extremely short, not 5.5, 6, but I think 7 is probably where he belongs. So we'll see. And Nashville, I don't know. It might have just been a lot real quick. He had been running a lot of races really, really quick. So that's what I'm going to go with. I think Charlatan's just a classier horse. And Nashville was tested. So we'll see how he does next time out. Let's close it out by one of the better races on the turf. It was the Lady of Shamrock Stakes going a mile on the turf. This was the race that we were kind of all over the place on the live stream. You had your opinions. I had mine. Magic had his. I think we were all over. Was this the race that we had the little side bet? I don't remember.
Yep.
Okay. So I like Nasty. I think you took On Mars, I believe. Yeah, and in this race, we all kind of said that Warren Showtime is probably the horse you want to look at. Counterparty Risk, it was the 8 and 9. No surprise, the 8 was Chad Brown. No, nothing strange or different there. But this was a race that we said you might want some coverage if you were going to go outside the 8 and 9. Kind of just walk me through what you saw and, kind of break it down as we close out Santa Anita from Saturday.
Well, I just thought Nasty ran an incredible race because, yes, she was clear of the rest of the field like we thought, but she was going pretty damn fast the whole way around the track. And, unpressured, and that's a huge factor, don't get me wrong. But also, when you're running that fast and to still have something left, and Counterparty Risk for Chad Brown was closing hard, and she was able to hold her off. Warren Showtime wasn't far behind. Even On Mars made a move, but they just could not get to Nasty. So I think this one's plain and simple. She got the trip she needed, no question about it. And then she showed a lot of heart to hold off there at the end. Yes, it was a speed favoring track all day, but we didn't really see a horse go this fast, and hold on like that. So I think Nasty deserves a lot of credit in this one.
Yeah, to go a mile, if anyone's not familiar, to go 8 furlongs on the turf in the first quarter, 22 and 4, and to post a 46 and 1. and hold on is absolutely incredible. To your point, we saw quick. We didn't see this quick until this race. And I thought for the most part, we kind of talked about it, at least I said it. You had kind of tier A, which was Counterparty Rich, Warren Showtime. Tier B was Nasty and On Mars. And tier C or tier 3 were kind of the rest. And it kind of played out that way. Tier A and tier B were the better horses. Yeah. And you could kind of tell by the odds. The only one that really took money that wasn't great was Miss Extra. Kind of really didn't show much. But we kind of figured that you wanted to go 4 deep to be safe. If you had multi-race tickets, you were going to play, anything like that. But no, Nasty was incredible. Before we end this, I just want to say, if you're not on the Ricky Gonzalez train, get on it. I said it on Saturday. He was fantastic at Santa Anita, and he's going to be one to watch. Look, if it's not too late. Santa Anita just started. We can get on it. I will certainly be playing him back. So get on. But we do have a lot of other things to get to. And one of those things before we get to today's stuff, we were just going to recap kind of what happened last Wednesday at Gulfstream. You did really, really well. I was one leg off. And it was, we'll start with race 7. It was the claiming for 16,000 for 3-year-olds and upward. It was kind of the race that we were all kind of back and forth on. I had Earth, and we talked about it after the race, and we both said Earth ran a really, really, really good race. And I just didn't go deep enough in that field. I had Oak Bluffs. Oak Bluffs was okay. But yeah, how did you kind of see that 7th race kind of playing out?
Well, I'll just go through all of them as kind of a whole, as far as the betting psychology. I don't think we need to go in with these claimers and how, and break them down really. But the 7th race, I played a try box. My horses ran 2, 4, 5, so really not close, not a good enough handicapping. But the horses that finished 1, 2, 3 had similar odds as mine, and it paid $80 basically for a try for a $12 bet. So I thought I made the right decision on the wagering end of things. Just didn't handicap the race very well. Race 8 did a $5 win place on the 2, and we were worried about Julian getting the horse out of the gate. He did, and it went wire to wire, so that was good to cash in there. The 9th race, a $20 win wager. This was my best bet on the card on Sham Rocket, and really didn't get the perfect trip or setup. We were worried about the mile. Just the best horse, just outclassed the field and just swooped through him. So at that point, knew we had a profit for the day. Tried to play an exacta with French Reef on top in the 10th. French Reef, I hope I never see you again. An absolutely horrific run by French Reef. We talked about that horse for like 10 minutes on the live show. Horrible performance. Hope I never see that horse again. But yeah, 33.7% ROI for the first show. I thought that was solid. But listen, we got 4 more to cover today. I feel good about a couple of them. So we'll see if we can do a little better today.
Yeah, no, like you said, that the first race was kind of wide open. You had a really, really good day for anyone who followed along. Again, I missed the first leg, and that's going to happen. It's nice that from a handicapping perspective, if you're out of the pick 4, you don't just stop there. Obviously, you don't have to bet again, but you want to see how your plays kind of came about just from the mindset of were you seeing the races right. Just because you don't have a winning ticket, were you seeing it right? Were you going through the right steps? If you go 0 for 4, you might say, I don't know. I definitely got today wrong. I got to kind of go back. So 3 for 4, it's not a winning ticket, but I feel confident moving forward, and it kind of parlayed into some big tickets cashing on Thursday. So that's kind of the way you have to play it. So without further ado, let's kind of kick into today's card. Just 2 days before New Year's, so great opportunity here to make some money. And we'll start with, the 7th race. This is a pretty solid race, claiming 35,000 through 25,000 for 2-year-old fillies going a mile on the turf. And I'll kind of let you start as I'm going to post the tickets here. You kind of let me know how you saw this race, how you were kind of thinking it through.
Yeah, so I'm going to kick it off right now with my strongest wager on the 4-race sequence here. I only invested $49 today with this 4-race sequence, partly because of a big scratch in race 9 that we'll talk about a little bit later. So again, betting psychology, I thought, well, I don't absolutely love this 4-race sequence, but there are some opportunities here to take some shots. So $49 I thought was pretty sensible. Listen, if you've got a huge bankroll, you got a bigger bankroll, you can always take what I'm doing and add more money to it. Or if it's smaller, you can take it smaller. That was a question I had. Should I just do exactly what you guys say? Well, curtail it to your bankroll is my best advice there. But anyway, to the 7th race, look, this race has a lot of mystery to it. But really, when you get right down to it, there's not very much in this field. It's pretty damn weak. So I turned right now, and I'm going to say $20 to win on the number 4 Pharaoh's Gold is how I'm going to kick off this thing. This horse coming in for Brad Cox gets Jose Ortiz to ride. We kind of touched on it last week about, hey, when Jose Ortiz is riding in a claimer, that makes, you got to take that into account because you might not have to ride every single race. So he's not going to jump on a claimer that he doesn't think is very good. You look at this horse last time out on the turf at Indiana Grand in an allowance race, got second beating a length and 3/4. And you might think, well, damn, Indiana Grand, this horse couldn't win. And now you're going to pick it at Gulfstream. Those turf allowances at Indiana Grand are pretty tough. If this horse was coming out of a claimer at Indiana Grand and then coming to a claimer at Gulfstream, I would be worried. But from a turf allowance at Indiana Grand to a $35,000 claimer at Gulfstream, I still kind of think this horse is taking a bit of a drop here, even though the track is much tougher. So number 4, Pharaoh's Gold for me. I think the horse will get a nice stalking trip. I think there's enough speed out in front of her with the 7 and the 8. And I kind of think she's got the perfect kind of inside stalking position. So I kept it pretty simple here. $20 to win on Pharaoh's Gold. This is my my most likely winner of the 4-race sequence.
Yeah, I'm with you in terms of the top choice. I don't disagree with anything you just said. Jose Ortiz, if we could just look at the 3 Serenade Kitten, who I'm going to talk about. Tyler Gaffalione comes into this spot, and you guys might be looking at something a little more updated. Tyler Gaffalione has 129 rides at Gulfstream. Jose Ortiz has 13. So to kind of Aaron's point, Jose Ortiz doesn't just have to hop on anything. He's going to be really selective. So I agree with everything you just said. I want to talk about. I went 4 deep, and I'll not going to talk about Pharaoh's Gold because we agree there. Serenade Kitten looked much better in her second race, and the biggest stretch for a horse, the biggest improvement is from spot 1 to spot 2, or along layoffs, or second off the layoff. And Tyler Gaffalione is going to pick up the mount, and I think that's important to note because Miguel Vasquez, who is also here at Gulfstream riding, he rides all the time at Gulfstream, doesn't get the call. So I think there's a potential step to move up. She took a lot of money in her debut and lost out to Viking Queen, who went on to win her, her next race. So I kind of see this horse moving up, and I think this is going to be a tough spot. Don't get me wrong. I think this is a spot where I want to kind of see how she does because I see a lot of room for progression. And then the next 2 horses were really pricey. And they're not my strongest plays, but I kind of will get into them for a few different reasons. Number 7, So Special Inclusion. She sprinted last time, was horrible. I think she really wants to go longer. Now, you can make the case, well, Ricky, she's never finished in the money on the turf going this distance. I agree. How about we take a look at those races and say why? Sharp Susan to Spanish Love Affair. Check out Spanish Love Affair, one of the better runners down in Florida, especially for 2-year-olds. So I don't have a problem with her there. Spanish Love Affairs are simply much better. And then the other race, it's another local state bred race, not really close. So, okay, fine. There's not much to go off of. One of the things I like here, I think Luis Saez is going to say, let me take a shot with her getting a little bit more speed. Luis Saez is extremely aggressive in a good way, not in a negative way, anything like that, but he's extremely aggressive, and he tries to get as much speed out of these horses as possible. The only horses that I saw on paper with a lot of speed, I think the 3 will show a little, but Pharaoh's Gold will probably be up there, and Glitter Bay. I think Special Inclusion is going to get a better trip. In the one race, it was on the dirt. It was a long time ago. She got to the lead early, and she did hold on. It was only 5 furlongs, but I looked at that and said, I don't know. If Luis Saez can get speed out of her, that's a horse I want to include. It's a bomb. It's going to be a price. She might be 15, 20 to 1, and that's okay. Anything short of that, no thank you. The other horse I think that has a little bit more of a shot is Coffee Buzz Buzz. Now, look, this horse ships down from the Mid-Atlantic. Brittany Russell is a Mid-Atlantic trainer. She's Pimlico, Parks, Delaware, all those tracks down there. Really, really, really solid. But she doesn't get the love because she's not in New York. She's not in Florida. She's not in Kentucky. She's not out west. Okay, that's fine. We've talked about this angle before. Edgard Zayas picks up the mount. Edgard Zayas doesn't ride a lot for Brittany Russell. And she has no turf experience. That's fine. But she does have Go Zapper as a sire. That's impressive. And the 1 mile, she won at Delaware in her debut. I don't know. Maybe she should have been running against a little bit tougher because she went gate to wire with relative ease. So that's the horse that I really, really would want to take the shot on. If you want to only go 3 deep, I think Coffee Buzz Buzz is the horse that you really want to lock in on. If you have the ability, the budget to go 4 deep, Special Inclusion just takes a drop in class now and for a tag. I think that's the one you want to look at. But Coffee Buzz Buzz is the horse that maybe you say, I'll go with the Aaron Halterman theory. I'll put money on Pharaoh's Gold, but maybe a little win place show on Coffee Buzz Buzz and see what happens.
Yeah, so the only horse that I disagree with you with is Coffee Buzz Buzz. I didn't like that horse very well. I thought Special Inclusion on the drop and with Luis Saez and the fact that I think we're going to see a lot of speed, I like that horse as well. Serenade Kitten, obviously, with the connections and the fact that the horse won last time out over this track at this distance, all good things. The thing I didn't like about Serenade Kitten is, you're right, this is going to be a pretty big speed figure jump to beat the 4. And that's kind of why I ended up landing on the 4 to win. One horse you didn't mention that I would be a little worried about it, and Dennis Trusty also likes this horse a bit as well. I had this horse in 3rd, number 5, Kentucky Pride. Gonna have to come from the clouds. That's definitely going to be, what this horse is going to have to do. Also going to have to, moving back to the turf, going to have to step up speed figure as well. But you look at the breeding, it's like, well, by Gioponte, why is this horse, on the dirt to begin with? Well, they debuted her on the turf, and she was awful at Churchill Downs. And so maybe something, maybe she just wasn't ready to run. I don't know, because her next start wasn't any good either. And then she's gotten better her last 2. So I thought she was intriguing enough to put underneath. I don't think she's going to beat Pharaoh's Gold, but I could see this horse coming up and getting 2nd or 3rd. So I think that's one you got to look at. I think her odds are going to be interesting. I don't really want this horse at like 4 to 1, which is what her morning line is. If she floats up to like 5, 6, 7, 8 to 1, I think she's kind of worth a shot. So that's one to look at, I think. Number 5, Kentucky Pride. It's interesting this filly by Gioponte gets back to the turf today.
Yeah, so real quick on Pharaoh's Gold. Pharaoh's Gold will be running without Lasix today. And Pharaoh's Gold 2 starts back when she won at Keeneland on the dirt. No Lasix as well. So I think that's a positive move we didn't really get to touch on. The other thing with Kentucky Pride, like you said, you didn't love Serenade Kitten. I didn't love Kentucky Pride. That's kind of where, I was like, that's the horse that's probably going to take money. And I just absolutely hated her turf debut. Oh, goodness. She couldn't pass me. Now, she's definitely gotten better. I don't know what she beat, though, right? And in her debut at maiden claiming 15 at Churchill on the dirt, able to handle the distance. That's fair. That's a point to prove. There is some pedigree there. I will take a lot of slander back from Julien Leperoux. He had a really, really nice week. Definitely improved his numbers. And he was never not a capable rider, just not, I wasn't his biggest fan. That was just the horse that I went back and forth between Serenade Kitten and Kentucky Pride. One of these things you have to do, especially in the multi-race sequences, you kind of have to say, how chalky do I want to get? And I don't look at Serenade Kitten or Kentucky Pride and say, you have to use these. So I kind of said, I'll go with Serenade Kitten. I'm sure if you were looking at it the other way, you would say, all right, I'll take Kentucky Pride. So that's kind of where we differ. I do agree. There's the pedigree. She's getting better. And I just, that one turf start, I just can't get off of. If you're going to lose by double-digit lengths in your only turf start and you're going to come beat me,
yeah,
I'll say congratulations at a short price. At a short price.
Enough with the Gio Ponte, horse here. That one turf spot or start was my biggest problem. Like, you didn't do any running. It's not like you got beat. You didn't do anything in it, and you were so bad that they put you to the dirt 3 straight times after. That's the biggest question mark. But when I look at this field, it's almost like a Mucho Gusto type, right? Like last week, it's like, okay, if the Cox horse doesn't win here, who the hell's going to win? I mean, and that's why I think you maybe structured it correctly. You need to go deep here because, especially if you have a strong opinion, elsewhere, which you do. I don't really, but you do. Then this is a race you need to go deep because you could catch a big price. So I don't blame you for going 4 deep, but the way I looked at it was just, hey, if number 4 Pharaoh's Gold runs a race, we're going to win this thing, and this is going to fund my next 3 wagers. And no matter what happens, I'm going to probably make a little bit of money because I've invested almost half my bankroll in this race right here.
Yeah. No, so I think we're kind of on the same page. We kind of have different opinions there. We're kind of top choice with Pharaoh's Gold. So we're kind of along the same line, so we'll be rooting for the same thing. Let's transition to the next race, slightly lesser competition here. It's claiming for $20,000 through $16,000 for 3-year-olds and upward that have never won 3 races. And I'll start here, race 8, 9 furlongs on the turf. I absolutely love Austrian. If you haven't been following Gulfstream early on, Danny Gargan is doing a hell of a job. And look, that's not to say every Danny Gargan horse you got to play, but there's a reason that he's winning at 58%, and there's a reason that his horse is 5-2 on the morning line. And you'll get into kind of how you structured your ticket, but this is a big class drop. Even to a state bred allowance, if you watch that race, just never was kind of sitting on the rail. I thought those horses were kind of just better than him. And sometimes that's the case. You might say, well, he didn't pass horses. All right, at 10-1, he only lost by 3 lengths. I don't know how bad that is. And now there's a 7th place finish. Okay, that's fine. And the reason I kind of wanted to get my, not hatred, but the slander away from Julien Leparoux is because I got a bank on him here. Julien Leparoux, I will say, I prefer him on the turf rather than the dirt. I learned that lesson at at Churchill Downs a few times over the spring and summer and all that good stuff. I just think that this is a massive class drop, and this could be one of those horses. And we're going to talk about this, and you might know this better than me. A lot of these horses at the end of the year, they just want to be off the books. They don't want to be off the books. The connections want them off the books. They don't want to be part of this horse. And that might just be what it is here. The horse wasn't claimed at Kentucky Downs. It's won by 2 1/4 lengths. We're talking 3 starts back, almost 29-1. I probably wouldn't have claimed him either. There are probably a lot of other horses that were better in that spot. But I think at this point, they might just be saying, let's just get rid of this horse. He was purchased for $90,000, hasn't really done a lot of running. Let's just kind of try to get a win, take some purse money, move on. The other horse that I took a look at was Spitting Kitten. Spitting Kitten is one of those horses that's extremely consistent. And that's one of the biggest things for me at these lower level claiming. Now, we can get lower than what we're running at here. Not much lower, though. Yeah. I'll get into the consistency point in a minute. Joe Bravo does pick up the mount again. He's done well at this distance, which I do like. When you're kind of going through these horses, you really try to split between, because a lot of them have run against each other before, and a lot of them show that lack of consistency. So one of the things that I look for at these lower level claiming, how consistent can you be? Because we've seen a lot of bombs come in at these lower level claims, and you're like, how did that horse make sense? Well, the horse didn't make sense because he just finished 8th by 10 lengths. When you have horses that consistently run in the money or only a few lengths off, those are the horses I like to target because you're going to get a quality effort. So I went relatively short. I'm really banking on Austria, and I think this is a horse that they kind of say, let's just get him off the books and just get some purse money and get the tag out of there and try to end the year right.
So I'll touch on the 6 and the 9 first because I do have those in second and third. Well, I guess before I start, I'll just say, as far as the betting psychology of this race goes, this was one of my tougher decisions. I kind of flip-flopped a couple times. I thought in the end a try box made sense here because I had a couple of prices mixed in with the 6 and the 9 that you've already touched on. So I just thought, yeah, I think the try box could pay, $50 here, and I think it's a good enough bet. What I almost did, and I'll start with my top pick, I almost did a win place on number 4, Positive Phil at 8-1 on the morning line. I don't know if we'll get that or not, but I kind of like this horse to pull off a little bit of a mild upset today. Stretching out a bit in distance. Sometimes, people will look at that and say, I don't know if that's good for a horse that if he faded at 1.16 miles. Well, sometimes the pace dynamics of just that extra 16th of a mile makes a huge difference. I kind of think with Harmio aboard, he's going to send the horse just like he did last time out at this level, going 1.16 miles. I kind of think the pace setup is completely different today. I think Positive Phil has a shot to take this field wire to wire. I like him at a sneaky 8-1 price. I hope we get that. The deal with Positive Phil, at the end of the day, I was just like, I'm just not confident enough to put all the eggs in his basket. I want to kind of branch out here. I want to do something a little bit different. So I went with the try box. I did add the 6 Austrian. I did add the 9 Spinning Kitten as well for mainly the same reasons that you kind of mentioned, right? I mean, this Austrian is a horse taking a class drop, but this is where he needs to be. It's not a suspicious class drop. The last time he won was at this level. So, yeah, it's a class drop, and sometimes I hate that, but really not in this situation. I'm with you on Austrian. Spinning Kitten is another one, just a really consistent horse. I think a horse that might get ignored that has a shot, and the horse I use to round out the try box is the 1 Small Hope. I thought ran pretty well last time out at this distance and beat Spinning Kitten, by the way. Finished ahead of Spinning Kitten. Gets a little extra distance. I don't think that's going to hurt this horse. Needs a pace setup, and that's why I wouldn't use this horse on top. So, like, for what you're doing as far as the way you're structuring your pick 4, I'm kind of with you. I don't think this horse is going to win, but I think this horse could hit the board. And I think, if I could get something like Positive Phil, Small Hope, and Austrian in the try, I'll take that right now. So I think Small Hope is the other one you have to use if you're playing a try. So yeah, I boxed the 1, 4, 6, and 9. And the big key to this is Positive Phil getting up there in the top 3. If he does, we're gonna see a pretty good payoff here.
Yeah, I'm not going to take anything away you said from Small Hope. Completely agree. I think it's important Paco Lopez picks up the ride again. He probably could have gone in a different direction. So the fact he saw something in this horse is positive, and that's the one horse that I would have included that I was like, I don't think he's a true win candidate. And that's kind of the question you have to ask yourself. The thing with Positive Phil, I never run at the distance. That's fine. It's only an extra half furlong, but he did face Small Hope and Spinning Kitten, so he will have to be better. But to your point, though, should be on the lead. Harmio, again, he picks up the mount. So, and Juan Carlos Avila, 29%. I'm not going to argue with that as, here at the meet. So that is a nice price. And again, I kind of saw it as a little bit more straight up, but I don't disagree with anything you just said there. So that was pretty straightforward. Let's move on to the back half of the pick 4 here. And this is one of the tougher races just because we'll talk about the scratch in a moment. Starter optional claiming for 20,000, 3-year-olds and upward, all that other good jazz, that haven't started claiming for 12.5. This is going a mile, 1-turn mile. We'll start with the scratch Avant Garde. I think this is one of Magic's favorite horses. He's talked about this horse before. He was in at Remington Park running in a tough race. Ran, honestly, I'll say ran solid. I don't know. This is the race, and he Avant Garde's out. We kind of said that this, we both agree that this kind of would have been the horse to put on top. So obviously, with that being said, this race really opens up. I don't know. I'll let you kick this off because I don't have any true strong opinions. I'll see how you kind of play this one out.
Yeah, this race sucks now. I hate it. I had Avant-Garde on top. That was going to be another big win bet for me. And basically, I had set up this whole betting structure before this scratch. It's like, okay, I'm going to go big in the 7th, which I still did, big relative to my bankroll that I'm using. And I'm going to go big in the 9th. And then whatever happens in the other 2 races happens. But those 2 horses win. We're making money on the day. Well, that all went to hell when Avant-Garde, scratched. Listen, Dennis, you said it in the comments. Race 9 is tough as nails. It really, really is. Now it's 6 horses that all look about the same. I ended up on walk-off on top, and you touched on Danny Gargan, or a little bit earlier on the card. Listen, you can't ignore him right now. And this horse has won two in a row, gets Tyler Gaffalione back aboard. He was on 2 races back. I think the horse kind of fits from a class perspective. And I think he's going to get the setup. Listen, I think there's going to be a lot of pace in here. The 2, the 3, the 4, I think they're all going to go. And if that happens, even if just 2 of them go, you're going to see a little bit of a pace falling apart down the stretch. And I think Walkoff sits in a pretty good spot. The reason why I really like him, he's not going to be 8 links out of it. He's going to be 4 or 5 links. He's going to get the first run on the leaders. And if they come back a little bit, I think he makes a lot of sense. That being said, I don't have a ton of confidence in him. And I'm also worried that people are going to see what I'm seeing. And it's like, yeah, maybe he's not going to be 5-1. Maybe he's going to be 2-1. And so then it's like, if he's 5-1, I could play a win place. But if I really think he's going to be, 5-2, 2-1, I just played a simple $5 to win on this horse. Hey, if he wins, he's going to pay for my try that I'm going to pay in the last race. So if he wins, I got Gulfstream's money playing in the 10th race. That's kind of the way I set it up. I don't have a ton of confidence in him, but I think he's the most likely winner based on the setup today.
Yeah, I don't disagree. The theory I was talking about before where, a lot of connections want to just get their horses off the books with the 7 walk-off, if I'm not pronouncing this correctly, Speeddale Family Racing LLC. We kind of saw the same thing in the last race with Austrian. Speeddale Family Racing LLC might be another situation where at the end of 2020, let's just get the horse off the books. And I think that's one of the situations with walk-off. Now, this theory might not play out. It might be we're just trying to see what we can get. I think, as we kind of walk this through, I think walk-off is probably the horse to beat due to the setup, and we're seeing kind of in the comments that the 2 and the 4 might hook up. I really love walk-off. I think I remember this horse at Saratoga. He was just kind of facing better horses. Per capita was really tough, and Hunt the Front is another horse that likes to come from off the pace. So he's not a better closer than Hunt the Front, or he's going to sit mid-pack. I think walk-off's probably the horse that's going to take a lot more money. We talked about this before between the 2 Create Again and the 4 Snap Hook. I think this is kind of one of those you have to go either or, because we don't really trust Create Again and Snap Hook not to duke it out. And you talked about this over on the live stream on Saturday, the lower level claiming or the starter optional claiming for a lower tag. These horses are going to be the ones that hook up. Not the better horses, not the higher quality horses, not the horses that have the ability to rate or follow the rider's instructions a little bit better. These horses look like they're going to go. I prefer the 2 Create Again. I think he's a true miler. He's got 3 out of 7 here. Obviously, Snap Hook's got 3 out of 10 and 6 out of 10. I just prefer this horse better. The one thing I was slightly concerning was he was scheduled to run on the turf last time out, and they said, maybe we made the wrong decision. We'll put him back on the dirt. I don't know. This horse won by 17 3/4 lengths. Granted, he went off at 1-2. Is that a horse you want to leave off the ticket? I'm going to say no. Do I think that 18,000 claimer is that much worse than this field? I don't, in my opinion. And we saw Snap Hook in the claiming Crown Iron Horse. He's still trying to finish that race. So I don't know. That's just where I go between the 2 and the 4. Mike, you're talking about the one Danville. I don't necessarily disagree with you. If you think Walk Off is that much better and you're going to say, well, Danville finished 2 lanes behind, that's a way you can go. I just think that if, one of the things, in horse racing and, your betting is, and you talked about it, Aaron, it's like the setup. Is Danville a better closer than Walk Off, or is he going to be better at sitting off the pace? I doubt it. So if this was the case where Walk Off was on the lead, then Danville to me looks a little bit more attractive. I just think when you have 2 horses doing the same thing, you got to look to kind of see what's better. So I prefer Walk Off, but Danville's an interesting choice. What did you think of him?
Yeah, I think if you like Walk Off, you kind of have to like Danville a little bit. Like I said, he finished 3rd, beating 2 to Walk Off last time out. It really depends on just how much you think this is going to melt down. It's really going to have to melt down, I think, for Danville to win. But what Michael Myers said is I agree with. It's very logical. This horse comes in underneath, and maybe you get like a Walk Off to win, and then Danville gets 2nd, and then another, like one of those speed horses holds on, and then all of a sudden you've got a little bit of spice to your exotics in a 6-horse field where Danville is a decent number. My problem, and why I'm really glad I didn't play pick 4, or it wasn't my responsibility to put together the pick 4 like you, is it's almost like you need to play all closers or all speed. Like that's almost how I looked at it. Cause it's like, what if, Create Again just is the speed of the speed and takes them off, and it sets up just like the Malibu. And all of a sudden we really don't have that pace. Well, then Walk Off's kind of screwed, and so is Danville. Or do you just play it and it's like, hey, it's going to totally fall apart. I'm going 1, 6, 7, throw the 6 in. He's a closer, so it's like, it's really hard to get out of this race, in my opinion. You just gotta kind of hope to get lucky in some ways, because it really can go so many different ways. That's why I ended up just playing a win bet for the way I'm looking at this thing. Cause it's like, I don't want to mess with Danville. I don't want to mess with those stupid horses. I don't want to mess with the pace is going to do this or that. I'm going to take the damn stalker in the race, number 7 Walk Off, who shouldn't be affected by the pace. And if for some reason the pace is slow, well, he's still at least within range. And I also played him for $5 because I don't really like the bastard that well. I don't like anybody in this race. This race totally got screwed for me. It's kind of just here's kind of a dick off play while I wait for the 10th race.
Yeah, and that's a nice segue, because as we hit the final race here, this one's interesting, right? It's made in special way for 2-year-old fillies, going about 7.5 furlongs. Credit to Gulfstream for coming with about 7.5 furlongs. All credit to you for that one. But I couldn't get a read on this race at all. I went 6 deep. Now, a lot of people might not have the chance to do that, but I'll start, and I'll just go run through them real quick. I'm not going to talk about all 6 in lane. The 2 Cash Refront has plenty of pedigree. I think there's a lot of room for improvement. Mike Maker and Tyler Gaffalione have done well together. Obviously purchased overseas, and you see the GB, Great Britain. I think this horse has a lot of room for improvement. Stuck on Kitten is going to be asked to go a little bit longer, but she didn't show a lot of speed. This is the 4 horse for Wesley Ward. I think the added distance is really going to help. Kitten's Joy, obviously turf pedigree as well. The 5, Talk Radio with Junior Alvarado. I think there's room for improvement with this horse as well. I don't know. This is one of the horses that I wouldn't have minded leaving off if possible. I don't think that this horse I don't know. It's obviously a slight cutback in distance, but this is a horse that I didn't want to leave off. This is the horse, and I'm going to come back to the 7 in a minute. The 10 Cadencia, she's had her chances at this distance before. She's shown a little bit more speed on the track in the mornings, 49 flat workout. I don't know, maybe that helps. I just don't, to be honest, I don't feel that strongly about her. I'm not leaving Todd Pletcher off. And the 11, Candace O, this is the horse that's also shown consistent progression. Started at Keeneland, makes her way to Aqueduct, Declaration of War, one of the better turf sires. The horse that I didn't get to, so that's 5 of 6. The horse I didn't get to is here. Frosted filly, obviously tons of pedigree, purchased for $205,000. Eddie Keneally is not based here in Florida. Eddie Keneally is, I don't want to say mid-Atlantic, in the Kentucky area, mostly. So again, that's not mid-Atlantic, that's not Midwest, that's, whenever in the middle, Churchill Downs, Keenelands, Kentucky Downs, all those types of things. Paco Lopez gets the mount. There's something about horses that when they get turf workouts in the morning, especially going 4 or 5 furlongs, especially the 5 furlongs, and they follow that up with a 4 furlong work on the dirt, you get a strong indication of what that horse can do, because a lot of trainers will tend to give their horses a dirt sprint just to get them going again, a little bit more of an energy rush. But their big workout was the 1-2 back. So I'm referring to the 5 furlong. If you don't have the workout, December 11th. Look, this horse might not run a lick. She might not be able to outrun me. But at the same time, this is a horse. There are a lot of signs that say, you know what? If you don't love the horses that have already run, that's a horse that you want to include. So I'm going to leave this to you. I think this race was wide open. Kind of tell me how you were looking through this one.
Yeah, I'll kick it off with Dennis's comment. He said, I went 11 win place and exacta box, 4, 10, and 11. Well, the good news is, Dennis, I played a trifecta box. 4, 10, and 11 were definitely on my ticket. But one horse was not on one horse you're not using that is on my ticket, and is actually my top choice, is number 2, Cash Refund. So I'll go right into Cash Refund here real quick. Exits what I think was a very tough maiden special weight at Aqueduct, won by technical analysis, who was a pretty nice horse for Chad Brown that day. And if you go back and watch the replay of Cash Refund, this was a very green filly, very green, right? All over the track. Still was able to make up a few lengths in the stretch, got 6th, but did make up about 4 lengths in the stretch. So still, as green as she was, looked pretty good. Today, Mike Maker is adding blinkers. I think that's really going to help. Get Tyler Gaffleone. I mean, nobody's going to, complain about that right now at Gulfstream. Look at the breeding on this horse. It is impeccable. European breeding. Golden Horn, the sire. This horse is bred to be really, really good. So I think Cash Refund has got a chance to bounce back from what some might think was a poor effort on debut. I would just call it a green effort. I don't really think it was poor so much. So I think Cash Refund's got a shot to bounce back today. Second choice for me, what was the 4 Stuck on Kitten, the favorite? Just logically, it makes sense. Kitten's Joy, going to stretch out in distance, ran pretty well on debut. Ward, Leparoux, it just makes sense. Yeah, I think you got to use her. The 10 was actually my 4th choice, but I did use her in the trifecta, and I kind of agree with what you said wholeheartedly. Had a lot of chances, right? Like if this horse wasn't trained by Todd Pletcher, probably wouldn't use her. But you're not going to let Todd beat you at Gulfstream. I get it 100%. She's the one I'm least excited about. The 11, yeah, Dennis, I'm kind of with you. This horse, especially if you get 8-1, this is definitely one worth playing. Coming in for Grand Motion, gets Jose Ortiz to ride, just missed out, just barely last time out after setting the pace, at Aqueduct, just by 3/4 of a length, and ran pretty fast, set pretty fast fractions, gets a little cutback in distance from the outside post. I'm a little worried about that, but if this horse can kind of get clear of the field, maybe she can take them wire to wire. So, as far as the betting psychology of this race, it was very quick and easy. Looked at it and said, oh, this is a trifecta race. You throw in 4 horses in a box, and literally you're not going to hear other handicappers say this because their egos get in the way. You're trying to get lucky, period. These tries, it's all about luck. You do the best you can to pick the 4 best horses you can. You just hope they get the trips, especially it's a 2-year-old filly race. So, that's basically what you're doing. But I went with the 50-cent try box, 2, 4, 10, and 11.
Yeah, no, I did use the 2 Cash Refund. I didn't disagree with you at all. I'd cash refund as the third choice, but you know, when you're playing pick fours, you don't really care where they land.
Right.
I went 2, 4, 5, 6, 2, 4, 5, 7, 10, 11. Real quick, since you had 4 horses, I maybe we agree or disagree. I think Candace O is the one that just, if I'm going to place a win bet, that's the one that I'm kind of excited about at 8-1. Hopefully she's kind of something in that range. So, yeah, obviously, you know, this is one of those races that I'm hoping, like you said, I kind of get a little lucky here in terms of there's a price. I don't see, I think Stuck on Kitten will probably be the favorite. I'm not excited about her as being a favorite though. So I think this was one of my more open races in terms of kind of how I said about a few of the earlier races. So, you know, I'll recap with my ticket right here. Obviously it's strolling at the bottom. I went 3, 4, 7, 10 with 6, 9 with 2, 7 with 2, 4, 5, 7, 10, 11. That's a $48 ticket. I'm hoping we get a little lucky in the first and the fourth. The middle legs, I kind of saw it as a little bit more straightforward.
Yeah, and so for me, I invested $49 in this one, which is a little less than what I did last week, but not a whole lot less. To me, I set it up where if number 4 Pharaoh's Gold wins, we're going to at least show a profit on the day. I did $20 to win on number 4 Pharaoh's Gold in the 7th race. In the 8th race, I came back with a 50-cent try box with the 1, 4, 6, and 9. I almost played a win place on the 4 there, but I wasn't confident enough, but I am confident enough to think let's get the 4 into the number there and make that try pay. Race 9, the scratch of the 8 was a big problem, so I just invested $5 in this race, $5 to win on number 7 Walk-Off, just hoping that Walk-Off gets the trip and hoping that the speed kind of comes back a little bit. And then in the 10th that we just talked about, I just think it's a perfect race to try an exotic, whether it be an exacta box with 3 horses or a try with 4. I went with the try box with 4 horses, the 2, 4, 10, and 11 boxed up in that one. Real quick, you kind of talked about betting a win in the 10th. It is a pretty good race. I agree to bet a win. I thought about it. I just kind of think the try was going to pay more for less of a risk. I'm with you. I would look at the 11's odds and I would look at the 2's odds. If the 2 gets pounded, I would just stay away from it and maybe go to the 11. But if the 2 is sitting there at 5-1, I'd probably take it. If not, she gets pounded, the 11 would be the next one I would look at.
Yeah, and I completely agree. I think if we kind of look at a talent perspective, obviously they're coming out of races that they've proven that they could run at this distance. Tons of pedigree. I agree. If the 11 takes a lot of money, look at the 2. The 2 takes a lot of money, look at the 11. Kind of what we talked about in the stakes race with duopoly at Santa Anita. So that's it for today. We will be back tomorrow, Thursday again at 11 a.m. and we will talk about same things. We'll kind of recap what we did. We don't have any recaps from the weekend to go over anymore. We kind of covered all that. But again, take a look at today's card. If you have any questions, comments, obviously come to any of our social media channels and comment there. Questions, all good things like that. And stay tuned tonight, Florida and Oklahoma. We know one person will be watching. So while you're taking a look at tomorrow's card, make sure you tune into that as well. But everyone, good luck. Stay safe. Just a couple days before the New Year's as well. So everyone, enjoy your holidays and we'll see you tomorrow.